Hello everybody, I'm some loudmouth on the internet with an opinion. One of my favorite movies of all time is the 1984 classic, The Terminator. Made on a budget of just $6.5 million, this movie is just amazing. It builds up its tension masterfully. It never lets up from beginning to end. This movie holds your heart in a vice. Arnold Schwarzenegger was superb as the unstoppable killing machine who heartlessly and relentlessly hunts this young woman and her struggle to survive and save the life of her yet unborn child. The special effects, while dated, are still highly effective to this day. It was a great movie then and it's a great movie now, and remains one of the definitive examples of sci-fi horror done with amazing results. Unfortunately, it seems inevitable that if a franchise lasts long enough and stays popular long enough, it will eventually fall into decline and eventually be put into the hands of hacks who create future installments, not because there's a good reason to, but pretty much just because they can. What is sad is that the previous Terminator sequels have been following a set story path, and while they weren't always done particularly that well, they all seem to be moving towards that conclusion of the future the original movie set up. Even the much maligned Terminator Salvation followed this path, and while the movie wasn't particularly good, it at least set up the post-apocalyptic setting pretty well. That post-apocalyptic machine-ruled wasteland is an awesome place that you can set a few intense R-rated action movies. Yeah, you really expect Hollywood to do anything that makes any goddamn sense. Nope, they abandoned that idea entirely. Instead, rebooted the franchise with the 2015 PG-13 cinematic clusterfuck known as Terminator this fucking movie. Terminator Genisys, I guess that's how it's pronounced, is not only a mess of a story that gets more and more ridiculous as it goes along, but worse, it turns a franchise that was once known for intense, smart sci-fi action and thrilling R-rated horror into this PG-13 generic Hollywood effects fest with no heart or soul, no tension, and a plot that starts off pretty stupid and gets increasingly dumber as it goes along. This from beginning to end is a great example of how not to tell a time travel story, how not to bring back a dormant franchise, and how not to make a summer blockbuster. So let's dig into this good franchise gone bad with my loudmouth review of Terminator Genisys. So the movie's opening is actually kind of okay. Like all the previous movies, it opens in a post-apocalyptic Skynet apocalypse. With modern technology, it's recreated pretty well.
Or worse.
Why the whole movie couldn't have been like this instead of the bullshit that's to come, I have absolutely no idea. Oh, what could have been. Here we see a young Kyle Reese meeting up with John Connor, his son, through the weird time paradox for the first time, which we already saw in the previous movie done completely differently. Continuity? What's that?
His name is John Connor.
Hey, why are you hanging out in the sewer? Seriously, who hangs out in the sewer? True to his character, we get to hear how John Connor is the savior of mankind and how he teaches the resistance to beat Skynet.
Taught us how to smash the machines to scrap.
But there was one man who taught us to fight, to storm the wire of the camps, to smash those metal motherfuckers into junk.
Is there anything that screams PG-13 pandering bullshit than repeating lines from the original movie but without those horrible cuss words? Dick, fuck, shit, cocksucker, motherfucker. So we see a scene that's all too brief of the Resistance infiltrating Skynet's headquarters, and like I said, it's all too brief. It happens so fast and so easily, you just kind of wonder why it took them this long, as Skynet seemed like total pushovers.
And the machines fell.
This all ends with the Resistance standing in front of the time displacement equipment that was hinted at in all the previous Terminator movies. This should have been the ending of the movie, not the beginning. Ever since I first saw the original Terminator movie, I have always wanted a future Terminator sequel that ended with this scene to bring the series full circle. But that is not this movie. Not even close. Of course, they spend several minutes deciding who gets to go through the time machine, and Kyle Reese, of course, is selected by John Connor as the man to go and protect Sarah Connor from the Terminator.
I'll volunteer. I'll go back.
Why should I send you?
Because I'd die for Sarah Connor.
So everything follows as you would expect it to. Reese, of course, has to take off all his clothes because for some reason that these movies never really fully explain, the time machine only sends back living tissue. And, of course, he's given a message to send Sarah Connor that he repeats from the first movie. So everything seems to be faithful to its mythology. But then this movie throws a little curveball at you to show we are not in the movie's original timeline.
You didn't think it would be that easy, did you?
Okay, why did the Terminator wait till after Reese stepped into the time machine to make his move? He was standing in the room the entire time. Is he like a fox hunting Terminator? Does he like giving the good guys a head start for some reason? So Reese arrives back in 1984, and we follow that up with a few recreations of various scenes from the original movie until something different happens.
Now.
Hey, fuck you, asshole.
You won't be needing any clothes. I've been waiting for you.
Yep, the original Terminator is dispatched after only a couple minutes of screen time. It's not like he was an extremely threatening menace in another movie or something. Kyle, as he was in the original movie, first gets chased by the police, until he encounters something else that was sent back to 1984. That's right, a T-1000. Remember Terminator 2? Remember how awesome it was? Well, this movie's here to remind you that it existed.
You okay? You tell me, O'Brien. You have to listen to me, or we're all gonna die.
This T-1000, though, is kinda stupid, and decides instead of simply maintaining his cop cover to get close to Kyle to quickly stab him, instead, for no reason whatsoever, stabs one of the cops that was arresting Kyle so they can shoot him, giving his target enough time to escape. What do these bad guys have against winning? But who should come to save Kyle but Sarah Connor herself, played by the mother of dragons, Emilia Clarke.
Come with me if you want to live. Now, soldier!
Yeah, I don't trust this version of Sarah Connor. She hasn't been answering my text messages.
Reese, right? Kyle Reese?
Apparently, this version of Sarah Connor already knows about Terminators before meeting Kyle Reese.
T-1000 liquid metal shape changer. Just needs to touch something to mimic it.
Hey, you know about Terminators? And you know who I am?
You were sent to protect me by John Connor, the leader of the Resistance. My son.
So if you like the original timeline, well, fuck you. It's gone. Apparently, this version of Sarah Connor was raised by the T-800, played, of course, by Arnold Schwarzenegger, though this seems only to be in the movie to justify why Arnold looks like an old man that he is.
And then you attacked Pops?
You named it?
Hello, Kyle Reese. It is nice to meet you.
He looks old. Never seen a Terminator old before.
The flesh they put on the cyborgs is normal human tissue. It ages.
My auditory circuits have not degraded, however. I'm old, not obsolete.
This explanation is probably better thought out than anything else in this movie's plot, like, for example, who sent back this T-800. The movie never explains, instead chooses to leave it a mystery that will supposedly be answered in future sequels, but given everything else in this movie's plot, I highly doubt they could even think of anything, so probably left it a mystery for that reason.
I think you hurt his feelings.
It doesn't have feelings.
He saved my life when I was 9. He's the only reason I'm alive.
I was programmed to protect Sarah Connor. I will not stop.
You're not programmed by who? Huh?
Who sent him back?
Those files have been erased.
Oh, that's convenient.
Whoever sent him, they don't want us to know. Not me, not him, not anyone.
Another thing about the original movie that, in my opinion, makes it the best of the series was how it had such a simple timeline that tied back to what we saw at the beginning. For example, earlier in the movie, you see Kyle in the future with a photograph of Sarah, and at the end, you see a kid take the exact same photograph, tying it together in a way that makes time travel easy to understand. But who the hell wants clear, easy-to-follow fantasy rules anyway, when we can have convoluted ones that we make up as we go along? But what we didn't see is that earlier in the movie, the T-1000 threw a piece of himself onto the vehicle that they were riding to help him track them down. No complaints here, I just always wonder why he never did that in Terminator 2. Another very confusing element of its time travel story is apparently because the timeline is now different, Reese was no longer born after Judgment Day and is now getting memories of a happy childhood flooding into his mind.
Genisys is Skynet. When Genisys comes online, Judgment Day begins. Go to San Francisco 2017. You can kill Skynet before it's born.
So how is he still back in time then? If the war never happened, then there was no time displacement equipment to send him back to 1984, and thus he should not be now in 1984. See how this doesn't make any sense? It totally ruins one of the smartest aspects of the original movie. But the T-1000, of course, isn't fully stopped by this, and continues and follows them to their base, where he proceeds to use his stabbing weapons as projectiles to throw at his enemies.
Sarah, go.
Again, I always wondered why he never did that in Terminator 2. We also find out that the T-1000 can use his liquid metal to infect the minds of other Terminators and use them as attack weapons against his opponents. And no, I did not wonder why he didn't do that in Terminator 2. That is purely a bullshit inconsistency in this movie. So the original Terminator is, for the second time in this movie, defeated. And this is followed quickly by the T-1000 that was chasing them, also being defeated. Yeah, he was real important to the plot. Okay, I make fun, but up until now, this movie has been alright. Unoriginal and cliche, but nothing terrible. It's here where the movie really starts to get stupid, as we find out that Sarah Connor and Arnold actually built a friggin' time machine to travel in the future to stop Judgment Day, which has now been delayed 30 years to 2017.
Are we ready?
The coordinates are set for 1997. You must leave as soon as possible.
We're going. All of us.
My flesh will take years to regrow. I cannot come with you due to the magnetics of the quantum field.
Not to 97. 2017.
Okay, this one is all kinds of stupid. So all of Cyberdyne's top researchers could only manage to develop Skynet after working on it for decades, but Sarah Connor and a Terminator, who, reprogrammed or not, was only developed for combat missions, actually managed to crack the secret of all time travel. Even ignoring that, I'm left wondering, why travel forward in time? Why not take advantage of the 30-year head start you have to stop Skynet now? All traveling forward in time does is give Skynet 3 decades to grow and develop itself completely unopposed. Basically, don't think about it too much. Then we get this movie's next bullshit explanation for why Kyle remembers an alternate timeline. Oh, you're gonna love this one.
Not a dream, all right? A memory. I can't hold on to all of it, just moments, but I was given a message. Skynet is Genisys. When it does, Judgment Day happens.
So you're remembering the future?
The boy is the alternate timeline version of you. While Reese is remembering his own past.
That makes it so much better. How can he be remembering two timelines?
It is possible if you were exposed to a nexus point in the time flow when you were in a quantum field. A nexus point is an event in time of such importance that it gives rise to a vastly different future.
Oh my god, the science in After Earth was better thought out than this. The rules of time travel in this movie are just such nonsense. Might as well just say it was caused by magical moonbeams for all the hell it makes any damn sense. So both of them decide to, of course, strip off all their clothes and go into the time machine. All is forgiven, Amelia. You can totally remove that restraining order if you want. When they arrive in the future, they find the area they were in has been turned into a highway, which leads to them getting hit by a car and suffer no injuries whatsoever because we follow Looney Tunes logic in this movie.
You're despicable.
Both are immediately arrested upon arriving in the future, but guess who is there to investigate? That's right, J.K. Simmons in a completely pointless and wasted role.
You see it? Did you?
He hasn't aged, not a bit, since I saw him in 1984, or two. You remember me? I was younger, more hair, less... You saved my life as a uniformed cop in L.A. Who are you people?
Sergeant, TechCom, DN38416, Kyle Reese. You need to let us go.
Reese, don't.
So,
Get me pictures of Spider-Man, I mean Terminators. In order to make it more topical, now Skynet is no longer just a defense network, but is now a cell phone app called Genisys, I guess, that is something that everyone can download on their cell phones.
Yeah, I pre-ordered Genisys weeks ago. Downloading the second the counter hit 0. Call you back.
Genisys is an operating system? What's it do?
Genisys does everything. My phone will link to my tablet, will link to my computer, will link to my car. Everything in my life uploaded and online 24/7, totally connected.
You know, I could totally get behind the topical nature of that. When the original Terminator came out, computers were some new thing that only really higher-ups used. Today, everyone's got a laptop and a cell phone and all kinds of apps, so certainly computers today are far more intricate into our lives than they were back when the original movie came out. So it kind of makes sense that a Skynet that grew in the 2010s rather than the 90s would rely more on mass media and computer apps than on just defense networks. A smarter movie really could have made this some kind of meta-commentary on how our lives are too reliant on technology, but that's not this movie. So the two of them break out, and we get this movie's most idiotic plot twist yet.
John.
What a twist!
What? So John breaks them out of their cuffs, and they go into a little trip down memory lane, a timeline that never happened.
We all know they can shapeshift. If you are John, prove it.
You hate lullabies. You're a sucker for Elton John, and you always thought if you had a child, you'd sing him Rocket Man.
John?
Sorry, movie, not buying it. There really is no way in hell Sarah Connor would have an emotional connection to her yet unconceived son who she's never met before. So John and Sarah finally give Kyle some very important information.
Dad?
You didn't tell him.
What?
Sarah's my mother, Kyle, and you're my father.
What? Why wouldn't you say something?
Couldn't. Not without the risk of changing everything.
Well, you fucked that up completely. So Arnold shows up after having hung out for 30 years, and we finally get a major plot twist. That's right, John Connor is a Terminator.
That hurt. Was that pain real, or was that a trick of memory from when I was less?
What a twist!
Skynet didn't attack me, Kyle. It changed me.
So we find out that this Terminator really is John Connor, who apparently right before being sent back in time was given some type of weird nanotech transformation.
I'm Skynet. We destroyed you.
You destroyed an army of slaves. I am no slave.
Okay, why would Skynet want to recruit its greatest enemy? Why not just kill him and give this transformation to anyone else who hasn't been such a thorn in their side? Okay, you probably think the reason he hasn't killed Sarah and Kyle is because they were his parents before he was ever conceived. Well, that might make sense, but then he says this.
What do you want with us?
I'm offering us a future. Together, a family.
If we refuse?
Then you die.
You can't kill us. We're your parents. Without us, you're never born.
It's who? We're marooned, the three of us. We're exiles in time. See, I can kill you, for there truly is no fate.
Really? That's your explanation? Because you're exiles in time? Okay, well, if you're an exile in time and can kill your parents without consequence, what's stopping you? So you can be a family? Are you kidding me? This is the most convoluted bullshit I have ever seen. Seriously, how much was James Cameron paid to say this?
It's being very respectful of the first two films. I feel like the franchise has been reinvigorated. Like this is a renaissance. The idea of taking John Connor and flipping him to the bad guy.
What have they done to my son?
Survival was what you taught me. It's pretty cool because you got to riff against expectation. It's all about the twists. If you like the Terminator film, you're gonna love this movie.
The answer is no.
So John goes on the attack by, of course, attacking the one person in front of you who would be by far the hardest to kill. Makes perfect sense. Whatever. They stop John by hooking him up to a powerful magnet, which for some reason doesn't affect the T-800 who's standing right next to it in the slightest because reasons, and then they make a run for it, and they escape and find out they have only 21 hours till Genisys will be activated.
Tomorrow, the waiting is over. Thanks to all of you. When that countdown hits 0, Cyberdyne will revolutionize technology with the ultimate killer app, Genisys. And I'm here to tell you that our pre-orders as of this afternoon have reached 1 billion users.
Well, aren't you happy you made the brilliant decision to travel forward 30 years instead of taking advantage of that 30 years to stop this program before it was ever started? Now you have only 21 hours to stop this in order to give this movie a bullshit ticking time clock scenario. Are you proud of yourself? But even worse than all this movie feels the need to give Skynet no longer just kind of an inhuman machine presence that's ever growing, now actually has a human face and a child's voice.
I'll bring it to this world. Has something to say. Genisys?
I cannot wait to meet you all tomorrow. We will change the future together.
Ay. The earlier movies established that Skynet was kind of a seemingly inanimate robotic presence, okay? It only ever took human forms in the form of the Terminators it sent in order to infiltrate human society. This just feels the odd and borderline childish need to anthropomorphize things in the belief that every audience member needs to see a human face on something to understand it. It really shows contempt for your audience's intelligence. During the 30 years that they were hanging out in the time machine, the T-800 decided to build his own private base full of weapons. But who should follow them to their hideaway but John? And John proceeds to do what everyone does in this movie, babble some lines from the original movie in a way that makes absolutely no sense.
You know what will happen. You better than anyone.
Can't be bargained with. Can't be reasoned with.
John, please.
I don't feel pity or remorse or fear.
John, please!
I absolutely will not stop ever until Skynet rules this world.
First movie! What is painful about the way this movie rips off so heavily the previous movie's iconography and lines is that the filmmakers completely seem to misunderstand what made those lines so iconic. Notice that the Terminator in the original actually showed these qualities in practice because he didn't monologue his actions. He simply tried to terminate his target. Thus, Kyle's warning was a chilling statement of fact about what the Terminator was and what Sarah was up against. Not only does having John Connor as the villain in this movie totally shit on what the first 4 movies were building towards in a massive way, but he is totally ineffective as a villain, and when he repeats lines like that from the original movie, it comes across as just laughable. Even the TX from Terminator 3, played by some supermodel who constantly seems to orgasm, was much scarier than the threat in this movie. So this predictably leads to a big Michael Bay-style explosive road chase that ends with them being arrested yet again, until later when John shows up and tries to kill them. It's a good thing in this movie with lots of people getting shot that their bodies were preemptively drained of all blood in order that this movie can get that PG-13 rating those studio executives so desperately crave. So they make their way back to Skynet's central facility and we get a generic tension-free action sequence with Skynet, of course, still talking in a child's voice.
I know who you are. You want to destroy me.
Of course, John Connor, our main villain, comes in, and they proceed to blow him up over and over and over again. And oh yeah, did I mention that they actually, no joke, have Skynet's voice slowly mature over the course of the scene?
I understand how to control this place. I understand a lot of things.
All right, as if when he gets smarter, his voice gets deeper.
You've lost.
That's not how computers work. And well, this whole scene ends just like most Terminator movies have done lately, with Arnold versus the bad Terminator, then stuff explodes and yada yada yada. Arnold once again sacrifices himself for the human characters. Never seen that before.
You are terminated.
But wait, this time Arnold totally survives and gets a liquid metal upgrade.
Hello, Sarah Connor.
Okay, given the fact that they fought several different shape-shifting Terminators in this movie, how stupid is it that Sarah runs up and gives him a hug after she sees his hand transform? How does she know he's not a T-1000 or something? Did she just forget the events of this movie? Because I know I'd like to.
That means there's only one thing left to do.
This movie ends with Sarah and Kyle visiting a young Kyle Reese for some reason.
Thank you. I like her.
Well then, boy, do I have some good news for you, kid.
There's something I need you to remember. A message. Genisys is Skynet.
So now you're trying to go back to the first movie's time loops? Yeah, it's a little late for that movie. And then they drive off and this movie comes to a close, but not without a mid-credits tease for a sequel that hopefully will never happen. So that was Terminator Genisys. What a mess. Sure, its opening is kind of cool and Emilia Clarke and Schwarzenegger give good performances with what they are given, but this movie is a typical Hollywood mess. Its PG-13 action is cartoony and over the top, and lacking the sense of tension and menace that made earlier installments in this series so good. Its story is an absolute convoluted mess, filled with massive plot holes and poorly thought out explanations. Its characters are dull and uninteresting, and it shamelessly copies earlier movies in the franchise with zero understanding of what made them work. Movies like this sum up everything wrong with modern Hollywood. Rather than come up with anything new, just slap the name of a well-known franchise on generic bullshit that has nothing to do with it. This movie is a complete waste. Please, Hollywood, stop making Terminator movies, okay? Terminator Genisys is such a mess, I cannot imagine any continuation from this movie being any good. This franchise, at this point, deserves to be, well, terminated. I'm some loudmouth on the internet. You just heard my opinion.